Okay, let's unpack this week's technical deep dive. We're focusing just on a pretty dense, critical stack of Azure service updates. These all landed between September 29th and October 3rd, 2025.
Yeah, it's definitely a high-stakes week for, infrastructure and planning teams.
Hmm.
Our mission today is kind of surgical, I think. We need to pull out the essential GA features, what's coming in public preview, and this is really crucial, those mandatory retirement timelines. Some of these need immediate action.
Right. We know you're juggling roadmaps, or we're cutting straight past any fluff. This deep dive, it's maybe less about shiny new launches and more about avoiding disruption. We've got several really high-impact deprecations.
And quite a few with fairly short deadlines, which really means they are mandatory transitions. You have to weigh these right now against the opportunities from the new GAs.
Exactly. So let's start with those hard deadlines. The ones technical teams really need to, well, stop and address right now.
Okay, let's begin where, the deepest roots of Azure lie. Storage and compute legacy stuff. Azure's continuing this push towards standardization and efficiency. So they're retiring general purpose V1 storage accounts, GPV1, and also the legacy blob storage accounts.
Yeah, and if you're still on GPZ1, the basic reason this is happening, architecturally speaking, is that V1 just doesn't have the foundation for modern cloud storage features. Things like specific hardware acceleration, advanced replication, tiered access controls, stuff that's just standard in GPV2 and beyond.
Right. So the clock's ticking. Migrating to V2 isn't just an option. It's really necessary for better performance, scalability, and, better cost control, too.
And alongside that storage cleanup, there's compute retirement friction as well. The NVV4 series Azure virtual machines, they're scheduled for retirement on September 30, 2026.
This one specifically hits desktop virtualization and GPU-accelerated workloads. We're talking SKUs, like standard NV4 going all the way up to the standard NV3204.
So if you've got internal VDI or maybe specific graphic rendering workloads that depend on these, you need to find them and, well, start planning for replacement capacity with the newer N series right away.
Okay, moving into operations and management now. We hit a kind of unusual transition. The Azure Monitor SCOM managed instance is also retiring on September 30, 2026.
And what's really surprising here, I think, is the recommended path if you're monitoring on-premises workloads. They're telling you to transition back to Operations Manager on-premises.
Yeah, that recommendation does make you pause, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Moving a managed cloud service back on-prem feels like a pretty big step backward architecturally.
It does.
What this says to me is that Microsoft is really sharpening the focus for the Monitor managed instance. It seems strictly for hybrid, Azure integrated, and maybe edge monitoring scenarios now.
So if your only reason for using SCOM is traditional, pure on-premises monitoring,
then they're basically signaling that the classic Operations Manager product is still the dedicated tool for that specific job. That's actually a critical strategic point listeners need to think about for their hybrid plans.
Okay, speaking of tight timelines, and this one is really tight, there's a potentially critical update for dev teams using serverless and static front ends. A very short fuse concerning Azure Static Web Apps.
Which part?
The database connection feature. It's currently in public preview, but it's being deprecated effective November 30, 2025.
Yeah, okay. November 30th, 2025. That is a tight turnaround. And the reason they gave was due to changes in the underlying infrastructure.
Right. Which, for technical folks listening, usually means the specific data proxy or maybe the security mechanism they were using to connect the static app and the backend database is changing significantly.
So any deployment that relies on that preview feature needs an immediate refactor. You'll have to switch to a more standard API layer like an Azure function or maybe app service to handle that data access. You can't rely on that direct connection anymore.
Yeah, developers need to pull that feature out of their preview environments, like now.
Okay, shifting gears to longer-term architectural stuff, particularly resilience in networking. Azure VPN Gateway support for the SSTP protocol is set for retirement, but further out, March 31st, 2027.
The reason they cite is limited scalability and, well, suboptimal performance for SSTP.
Which makes sense. But the crucial bit here is the migration path. They're strongly recommending moving to IKEv2 or OpenVPN.
And that's a good recommendation, right? If you
Yeah.
look at the capabilities, IKEv2 and OpenVPN support way more capacity. They can handle up to, 10,000 concurrent connections?
Exactly. That massive leap in scale and stability, it justifies making the transition mandatory. It really signals Azure's commitment to supporting these huge modern enterprise VPN setups.
And there's a similar kind of shift happening in container networking, too. The AKS Network Policy Manager, NPM, specifically for Linux nodes, that's retiring on September 30th, 2028.
Okay, a bit more runway on that one. And the future path is very clear. Move to Selenium network policy.
Yeah, and this transition is fundamentally architectural. NPM, it's traditionally built on older Linux kernel things like iptables, and those can cause performance overhead, complexity, especially at scale.
Right, whereas Cilium leverages eBPF, the extended Berkeley packet filter.
Exactly, which allows for, vastly better performance, much better observability, and a more robust security posture because it handles packet filtering way closer to the kernel. It's a strategic move to standardize on a better, more modern networking stack.
Makes sense.
Uh,
Okay, finally, in the retirement section, two highly specialized service deprecations. First, Azure Machine Learning's data labeling service is retiring September 30, 2026. This basically forces ML teams to shift to third-party data labeling providers
and the second one.
for data analytics teams. The Spark native connector for Semantic Link is retiring starting October 4, 2025.
Ooh, that Spark connector retirement is happening very quickly. And the reasons they cited low usage, high maintenance costs, and potential security vulnerabilities, well, it makes you think the maintenance and security risks were the real drivers there.
Yeah, anytime security vulnerabilities gets mentioned, even for something with low usage, it usually means the component itself was just deemed too risky to keep maintaining within the platform.
Okay, so that covers the mandatory transitions. Let's pivot now from those necessary changes to immediate opportunities, the generally available features. These are production-ready things you can adopt today.
And the timing on this first GA couldn't be much better, actually. Given that the older availability sets and the basic load balancer for AKS just hit their deprecation date, like days ago, September 30th, 2025.
Right.
We now have the GA of a simple Azure CLI command. It's designed specifically to help migrate away from those components on AKS.
Ah, that's a huge friction reducer. So this new command, it automatically handles that complex multi-step migration to the modern virtual machine scale set node pool structure.
That's right. So for anyone facing that mandatory upgrade this quarter, this automation tool should really minimize the manual steps and, significantly lower the risk of production downtime during the switch.
Okay, good timing indeed. Another critical GA focuses on enhanced security control, specifically with storage. We now have the general availability of cross-tenant customer-managed keys CMK for Azure NetApp Files volume encryption.
Right. What's really key here is understanding the specific scenario this solves. Think about customers in highly regulated industries, or maybe managed service providers, MSPs, who host data for multiple clients.
Okay.
Often, compliance rules dictate that the customer, not the provider, has to hold and manage the encryption keys. Cross-tenant CMK lets that ultimate end customer keep control over their keys, even if the NetApp Files service is technically running in a separate Azure tenancy. It gives them that necessary compliance and flexibility.
Got it. So moving into platform observability and infrastructure, Azure Traffic Manager has introduced its new health check infrastructure, and that's now generally available.
Yeah, this is a really vital internal improvement for resiliency. The new infrastructure is designed to give better scalability and consistency for the health probes themselves.
Which means?
It means the Traffic Manager service can reliably and quickly detect changes in endpoint health. So the platform makes faster, more accurate traffic routing decisions, which directly improves your application uptime and your recovery time objectives.
Okay, and kind of complementing that platform visibility, we also have the GA of enhanced integration for Azure Resource Manager metrics through Azure Monitor.
This GA gives much deeper visibility into platform operations. You get more granular monitoring for Resource Manager activities, things like deployment success failure rates, resource consumption patterns, control plane latency.
And it's all integrated directly into Azure Monitor.
Exactly, so you can track control plane ops and subscription activity at a much finer level than was possible before.
All right, now for the glimpse into the future. Public previews. These are great candidates for, proof of concept testing to maybe future-proof your development and platform capabilities. First up, Azure NetApp Files is significantly expanding its identity integration.
Indeed. We have the public preview of Azure NetApp Files support for OpenLDA, FreeIPA, and also Red Hat Directory Server LDAP services. This is potentially a massive win for environments that rely heavily on Linux and Unix directory services.
How so?
Well, it enables secure LDA over TLS connectivity for NFS v3 and NFS v4.1 volumes. That ensures robust, secure authentication and authorization across potentially complex mixed environments.
Makes sense. Okay, on the compute side, Azure Compute Gallery is introducing a pretty crucial resilience feature, soft delete. That's now in public preview.
Oh yeah, every infrastructure team has had that heart-stopping moment where a golden image gets accidentally deleted. Right?
Absolutely.
So this soft delete feature provides a 7-day safety net. It lets you recover any images that were mistakenly deleted before they're permanently gone. Given how much time goes into building and hardening base VM images, that recovery window is, well, pretty priceless.
Definitely a welcome safety net. Okay, finally, let's touch on data security and analytics workflow. Azure SQL updates are previewing protection from ransomware attacks for long-term retention backups, LTR backups, using immutability.
Yeah, that immutability for LTR backups, that's a really foundational security layer. It means that even if an attacker somehow gets control of your production environment or maybe your access keys, they cannot delete or alter those specific long-term archival backups.
So it dramatically improves your recovery position against sophisticated deletion or encryption attacks.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And if we connect that security update to the developer workflow, there's also the preview of the MS SQL extension integration with Microsoft Fabric right inside Visual Studio Code.
Okay. So this is about consolidating the developer tools.
Seems like it. The extension now adds a dedicated Fabric connectivity option right in the VS Code connection dialog. It lets developers sign in using Microsoft Entra ID and then browse Fabric SQL databases directly from their IDE.
So it removes a layer of friction, basically, making the development experience between traditional SQL and this newer Fabric ecosystem more seamless.
Precisely.
You know, looking across everything this week, what really stands out is this clear strategic push towards standardizing on more scalable, resilient architectures, and at the same time, a push for giving customers more granular control.
You really see that standardization everywhere, don't you?
Mhm.
The move towards Cilium, away from the older IPTables-based NPM and AKS, the mandatory shift to IKAV2 or OpenVPN for much higher networking capacity, the push towards managed VM pools with those automated migration tools we mentioned. And yeah, simultaneously, that focus on granular security control is obvious. From the cross-tenant CMK letting customers manage their keys to SQL immutability, protecting those deep archival backups, it feels like Azure is actively pruning the legacy services that just don't meet these modern standards of scale and resilience.
And that high volume of retirements really makes planning unavoidable, especially with some of those shorter deadlines. You absolutely need to review the tight deadline for the Static Web Apps database connection feature that hits fast in November 2025. And, of course, the retirement of legacy GPv1 storage and the NVv4 compute.
Right. Those are mandatory transitions. They affect running production code and infrastructure right now.
So this brings up an important question, I think, for you, the listener, to consider this week. We're seeing this increasing number of deep native integrations, like that MS SQL extension connecting directly with Fabric, or ARM metrics flowing seamlessly into Azure Monitor. It signals a major drive toward consolidating development, monitoring, maybe even analytics workflows into unified tools.
So the question is, how might relying on these deeper integrations force you to change your existing deployment pipelines? What about your security approval processes or even just your dependency management strategies over, say, the next 12 months?
Definitely some food for thought as you start scheduling those mandatory migrations. That's all for this week's Critical Azure Deep Dive.